I am Richard Schertzer of the Nocturnal, and I have Kim Bass, the creator of Kenan and Kel, and like maybe you can tell us about tell us the Nocturnal fans, where are you from and what was your upbringing like?
Well, where am I from? I was born and raised in upstate New York in a small city named called Utica, and my upbringing was very loving around a lot of people who were funny, creative, and I got the bug to be in the film and television business when I was very young, 7 years old, when my grandfather took me to my first film. And ever since then, I just thought, you know what, I'll make my way someday to Hollywood and figure it all out. And you had mentioned Kenan and Kel. That was actually based on my childhood with my best friend Tyrone. And Sister Sister, which I also created, was loosely based on my twin sisters. I have older sisters who are twins, Janice and Joyce. And so television, as you know, I was involved as a writer for the first two seasons of a sketch comedy show, which happened to be a hit show called In Living Color, where I was able to work with Keenan Wayans, Damon Wayans, and Jim Carrey, and Tommy Davidson, and David Allen Greer, and all the rest. And I had a really good time there in television. And I think my upbringing being around funny people, uh, relatives, prepared me to be able to, look at people from the inside and then bring that comedy out and present that in a way that it entertained others. So that's a little bit of my background. And then, of course, I transitioned into films. So, and we're here today for what reason, Richard? What do we want to talk about?
We You had a movie to promote?
Well, there are several. Yes, just most recently, back in 2022, we had a film that came out called Tyson's Run, which opened theatrically, limited theatrical release around the country. And now it just started streaming on Netflix outside of the US for right now. It'll begin streaming in the US on February 28th, 2024. So it's coming soon, but it has been performing unbelievably well globally. It was top 8 movie in the world on Netflix for the last couple of weeks, starting when its first week of streaming in the beginning of this month. And so it's caused a lot of waves coming up from Latin America. I mean, it was all over the place, and it made a splash, and a lot of that had to do, certainly in my humble opinion, to the Latina actress we cast, Claudia Zavallos, who is from Peru, and that's where the first theatrical release in Latin America happened in Peru, and then it spread to 500 theaters across all of Latin America. And as it sits today, it's one of the top movies on Netflix globally. So to make the top 10 list week after week on Netflix was no small feat. That's garnered a lot of attention for the picture. So we're really looking forward to the film now being made available on Netflix here in the US, as I said, starting on February 28th. And at the same time, a film that was in the theaters last year called A Snowy Day in Oakland, which had a limited release theatrically across the country. That just began streaming this month on Stars. So right now we have two films that were released literally 1 year and 1 week apart theatrically across the US, doing extremely well on two separate streamers, Stars and Netflix. So it's been a busy time as we prepare for the next films, but it's nice to, post-pandemic, have your artistic endeavors be recognized and for people to be enjoying these stories. I mean, that's the reason you make it, right? You make films, you want to share your stories with people and have them
Exactly.
internalize those stories, enjoy those stories, and in some cases take something away from having, spent the time and the money to go to a theater and see the films.
Yeah, so what attracts you to a project? What's the it factor that makes you want to be part of something?
Well, for me, obviously, it has to be something that has meaning, some sort of personal meaning to me, or something that I believe will not so much enlighten people, but entertain people. Number one, this is the entertainment business. So you want to entertain. And then along the way, if people can take something from a particular artistic endeavor, then that's a good thing. And it's the same for me. The stories occur to me. And if I can be interested, if I can imagine myself sitting in a movie theater, seeing that picture and enjoying it, then I often feel that that's something that others will enjoy. And it's the same for the small screen. If it's a television series, would I want to spend a half an hour or an hour with these particular characters telling their truth, through a story? And if that is something that engages my interest and sort of my emotional need to hear or feel something, then if it's interesting to me, then I feel that that is something that is at least worth presenting to see if it's interesting and enjoyable and entertaining to others.
Okay, and you said that you had Tyson's Run out.
Yes, so Tyson's Run was the film, or is the film, that was out in 2022 theatrically, starting in March and ran through April and May in the US. And that's the one that is now streaming on Netflix globally, and it will begin streaming here in the US, the US market on Netflix, starting in February 28th to be exact. And so, as I said, there are two films that are out now. They were released a year apart, 2020, March of 2023, and then March of 2022. And now both are hitting their streaming strides. And so that's a very enjoyable time, personally, as a filmmaker, because I know people are seeing the films. According to the data, the films are being seen by millions. And so that's a good thing.
So can you tell us more about Tyson's Run? Like what is that about?
Sure. So Tyson's Run is a story about a young boy, a 15-year-old boy, played by Major Dotson, living with autism. And he finds himself in a position where he needs to help heal his family. There's a rift between his mother and his father, and he perceives it to be because of him and because of his condition, so to speak. And he takes it upon himself to do something extraordinary, which is to prepare himself to run, and not only run in, but win a marathon race, though he has no athletic training and almost no athletic abilities. At least it was perceived to be so. And the film explores, people's humanity, sometimes their lack of compassion for others who are different. It talks about love. It talks about achievement. It talks about fulfilling your dreams. And Tyson is impacted greatly, of course, by his father, who's a football coach, played by Rory Cochrane, his mother, who's played by Amy Smart, a doting mom, and then his mentor, who's played by Barkhad Abdi, who was a marathon runner, world champion marathon runner, who became disgraced based on some dope testing, but that wasn't actually the case, but he was prejudged by others. And then he has a teacher played by Claudia Zavaios, who was instrumental in sort of propelling him into this running situation. And it ends up being a beautiful tale about trust, about love, about accomplishment, and certainly about others being open to allow other people who are different, who are perceived to be different, to be all that they can be. And so it's a great family film with a good message and a lot of entertainment factor. So that's Tyson's Run.
All right, and what advice do you have to other young filmmakers and writers?
Well, I think everyone has stories inside them. And so my advice would be, if you have a burning desire to share your story with others, then you just, as simple and as cliche as it might sound, you have to go for it. The first thing you have to do is begin to write. And I think one of the best ways to learn to write is, of course, watching the work of other people, of other filmmakers whose films you appreciate, other television series you really enjoy, and then, of course, dive into some books about writing, and then get your hands on some scripts that have been purchased, have been produced, and read some good material so that you know what works and then how to sort of craft, your stories in a manner that fits into the way that the scripts are accepted and the scripts are received. So that would be my advice. But really, it comes from the heart. If you have an idea that's just burning to burst out of you, you got to figure out a way to put that on paper, and then in a way that it's professionally prepared and presented. And just don't give up. Just get people to read your stuff, and then there invariably there'll be someone who is impacted by what you've written, somehow moved by what you've written, and lo and behold, there'll be a surprising phone call one day. I got that call one day, changed a lot of things.
And one last question: where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, 5 to 10 years, that's a long way out, but there's some projects that are in the works professionally. I'll talk about that first. That the next picture up, and we're hoping to be able to shoot that by spring of 2024. It's called A Lawyer, the Devil, Three Priests, and a Nun. The nun being played by Claudia Zavaios, and we're still casting other actors for the other major roles. And that's a very interesting sort of horror thriller noir picture that will be done. And then we're also deep in development on something called the Yasuke, Soul of a Samurai, which is an epic samurai story based on a real life individual who was taken as an enslaved person from Africa and ultimately ended up in the land of the rising sun, where he becomes a samurai. So that's something we're deep in development on. So just those two pictures alone will keep us pretty busy, but there are others that projects that have been presented to other pieces of talent. And so in some stages, we're in the negotiating stages, and in some stages, we're in the last parts of development. So I expect to be very busy over the last 5 to 10 years. And then personally, of course, it's just making sure that as a human being, you grow and love the ones who are closest to you, and hopefully get love from those who are closest to you, and learn something every day and add something good to the world.
Fair enough. So, Kim Bass, it was great talking to you again, sir. I appreciate it.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you for the time and feeling that I'm worthy of taking up your time. So say something good and do
I
something great. Say
I,
something good and do something great. There you go.
I will.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Have yourself a great day.